My name is Theodora Holcomb. I'm 74 years old. 3 weeks before Christmas, I'm sitting at my kitchen counter watching my daughter-in-law dig her own grave with a Cartier bracelet she didn't earn. I've buried a husband. I've buried a child. I know what graves look like. This one is small. It's gold. It cost $8,400, and it was paid for with money meant for children with failing hearts. The phone is ringing. Hannah is calling about Christmas. She's going to smile through the speaker and tell me to take the basement room. She doesn't know what's in that room. She doesn't know what's in the 47-page report next to my elbow. And she doesn't know that 3 weeks ago, I drove to Boston and signed papers with a federal white-collar attorney. By January 18th, my daughter-in-law's life will look very different from her Instagram. And the worst part for her isn't the lease I'm about to mention. The worst part is the room she just told me to sleep in. It was the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, 4 p.m. I was pouring Earl Grey into the cup Daniel gave me for our 30th anniversary, the one with a hairline crack he said was character, not damage. The phone rang. Hannah. Mom! She made my title sound like an exclamation point. We've been thinking about Christmas. Have you, honey? Matthew and I want to take the whole family up to the lake, just the 5 of us. Kids, you, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the works. That sounds lovely. And here's the best part. A pause. The kind of pause sales managers train into junior associates. We figured you could take the walkout room, the basement room. That way you don't have to manage the stairs. You've been looking tired, Mom. I looked at the jar of sand on the counter. The blue glass jar Caroline filled in October 1992. Lake George shore, 2 fistfuls, then a third, because she was 8 and never knew when to stop. Mom, that sounds lovely, Hannah. Let me check the calendar. You don't need to check, sweetie. We've already blocked the dates. I smiled at the jar. The jar didn't smile back. It rarely does. Of course, I said. Let me check anyway. I hung up. I stood at the counter for a long minute. Then I wrote 4 words in the yellow notebook in my desk drawer. Hannah called me tired. She had been calling me tired for 2 years. It's the kind of word people use the way contractors call a building historic right before they tear it down. The word tired is load-bearing in a certain kind of family. It's how a daughter-in-law begins to move a mother to the back of the house. I poured a second cup. I waited. Now I should tell you about the house. I designed it in 1985. I was 33. I had 2 boys and a baby girl on the way, and Daniel and I had bought a slope of land on the southwest shore of Lake George with the last of his grandfather's railroad money, 12 acres. The lot dropped 15 feet from road to dock. A normal architect would have flattened it. I didn't. I designed with the slope. The house has 3 floors, but you enter on the middle. The top is bedrooms. The bottom, the level Hannah called the basement, is the level you walk out of. Sliding glass, panoramic windows, red oak floor I sanded myself. Southern exposure from 7 a.m. until 2 p.m, every day of the year. I redesigned the back bedroom of that walkout level in the winter of 1991. We were told Caroline couldn't climb stairs anymore. Her heart wasn't pumping enough oxygen for it. So I gave her the room with the best light. I gave her the room with the lake. Hannah called it the basement. Architects call it the walkout level. There is a difference, and the difference matters. The kind of person who calls something a basement when it isn't, that's a person who has not learned to look at a thing twice. Hannah was a one-look person. She had built her whole life on one-look judgments. She judged the room. She judged me. She judged a child she had never met. I put my hand on the counter. I felt the cool stone. I had built this house with my own pencil. I had buried my daughter in the prettiest room. And now my daughter-in-law wanted to move me into it like I was a piece of luggage. In the autumn of 1992, Caroline was 8. She had hypoplastic left heart syndrome, 3 syllables and a hyphen no parent should have to learn. And we had been told, gently, that the new transplant lists would not get to her in time. October 14th. I remember it because I remember everything from that month. We had been told 2 weeks. Caroline was tired but lucid, and she wanted to sit on the dock. I carried her down, 8 years old and 71 pounds. The path is wood plank, 12 steps to the dock from the walkout door. I counted them every trip. She didn't want to swim. She wanted sand. For after, Mama, she said. So you remember, the lake didn't go away. She filled the blue glass jar I'd brought her, a pickle jar I'd washed 3 times to get the smell out. 2 fistfuls of pale, cold sand. Then a third. She was 8. She always pushed. She died on November 14th, 1992, 6:42 in the morning. Her bed faced the panoramic windows because I had wheeled it there myself the week before. The first light of the morning was on her face. She did not look afraid. The jar of sand has lived on my kitchen counter for 33 years. I dust it every Tuesday. I do not move it. Hannah once asked, sweetly, if she could move it. She said it was clashing with the new aesthetic. She meant the new aesthetic of her own life. I said no, quietly. I do not raise my voice in my own house. I never have. I learned a long time ago that the people who shout are usually losing the conversation. Caroline taught me that. 8-year-olds with failing hearts don't shout. They whisper. And what they whisper is the only thing worth hearing. A year after Caroline died, I did the only thing an architect can do with grief. I drew a foundation. Heart Heroes is what I called it. Daniel hated the name. He said it sounded like a comic book. I told him our daughter had been a hero, and comic books were correct about a lot of things. The mission is 2 pages long. It funds families with children who have congenital heart conditions, travel to specialty hospitals, insurance gaps, funeral costs no one wants to talk about, and, the part I keep, free stays at the lake house. 2 or 3 families a year. I pick them myself. I write the letters by hand. In the study, on the bookshelf below the window, there is a cedar box. Inside that box are the drawings the children sent me afterward. Some of those children are now adults. Some of those children are not. In September of 2026, an application crossed my desk from a woman named Sarah Bradford in Glens Falls. Single mother. Husband killed 2 years prior on a motorcycle. Son named Mason, 9 years old. Same diagnosis Caroline had. Hypoplastic left heart syndrome, status 1A on the transplant list. Doctors were hopeful for a heart in the first quarter of 2027, but they couldn't promise. I read Sarah's letter twice. The second time, my hand was shaking. I signed the approval for December 23rd through January 1st. Free. Foundation guest. I sent Sarah the keys and the gate code on a Tuesday in late October. I wrote her one line on the envelope. The light in the back bedroom comes in at sunrise. Mason should sleep in that room if he likes. I did not tell Hannah about Mason. I did not tell anyone. The room had been promised long before Hannah called. A week before Thanksgiving, I drove to Albany for dinner at Matthew and Hannah's. Hannah had recently redone the dining room in what she called modern farmhouse. It looked like a Pinterest board, had a head injury. Matthew was in the kitchen, on the phone, billing hours. He kissed my forehead without looking at me. He's been doing that for 3 years. Hannah brought me out to the sunroom. She had a Cartier bracelet on her wrist. Gold. Diamonds in a row like teeth. It threw light on the wall. "Mom," she said. She arranged her face into something like compassion. "I love your foundation. I really do. But Caroline died 33 years ago. You need to move on. It's not healthy." Outside, the November wind pushed leaves against the screen. Move on to what, Hannah? Just to the present, to your living family. We're here. We need you here. Not in the past. I noticed she did not name Carolyn. She said the past. A daughter-in-law's grammar is its own language. In the kitchen, Olivia, my 6-year-old granddaughter, looked up from her crayons. "Grandma," she said, "can I see Aunt Caroline's jar again next time?" Hannah's face moved. "Olivia, sweetheart, that's enough about that." I looked at Olivia. I smiled. "Yes, my love. Anytime." I looked at the Cartier. I'd been alive long enough to know what a husband's mid-tier law salary looked like. It did not look like that bracelet. I drove home that night past the Iron Bridge in Glens Falls. I kept my hands at 10 and 2. I did not turn on the radio. I sat down at the kitchen counter at 11:15, and I picked up a yellow leather notebook I had carried for 30 years. I wrote 3 words: Cartier. Where from? That was the beginning. It was the next June when Margaret Ellis came to my office. The foundation has a small building near the lake, a converted boathouse with 2 desks, a printer, a kettle, and Margaret. Margaret is 58. She's a CPA. She volunteered with us for 6 years before I noticed her hair was going gray. She has the patience of stone and the temperament of a librarian who has read every book. She knocked. She does not usually knock. She comes in with a question and a Post-it. "Thora," she said. Her voice was thin. She had a laptop under her arm. "I need to show you something. I'm probably wrong, but I have to ask before I file Q2. She turned the laptop. I read it twice. $4,300, Q1, line item miscellaneous administrative. No invoices, no vendor, no memo. Hannah's signature on the disbursement. Margaret had been the bookkeeper since 2020. Hannah had been the treasurer since May of 2024. I closed the laptop. I poured Margaret a cup of tea from the kettle. I gave her the cup. I put my hand on hers. "Margaret, take a breath. We're going to look at this together. Do not file Q2 until I tell you." She nodded. She is the kind of woman who needs to be told it is allowed. "Thora," she said, I didn't want to come to you." "Then I'm glad you did." I sent her home. I locked the boathouse. I walked the 400 yards back to the main house in late June light. The lake was glass. The dock was empty. In the kitchen, I picked up the phone. I dialed a number I had kept in my address book for 11 years. A man named Miguel Reyes answered on the 3rd ring. "Miguel," I said, "I need a quiet audit." The yellow notebook came out of my study drawer that night. I've been carrying it since 1996. Brown leather corners, yellow paper. The first page is a sketch of the lake house in pencil. The pencil is dated April '85 in my own hand. Half the book is buildings I drew over the years. The other half is empty. I turned to the first empty page. I wrote at the top, "Heart Heroes, Q1 2025 forward." I made a list. Quarterly reports, last 18 months. Bank statements, foundation operating account. Personal LLC search, HVH federal wire fraud threshold, $5,000. Christmas week lease, confirmed, no breach. Miguel Reyes, confidential engagement, do not bill foundation. I did not call Matthew. I did not call Jonathan. I did not text my sister-in-law in Vermont who would have wanted to know. I called one person besides Miguel, Ellen Pierce, white-collar federal attorney out of Boston. I'd been on a nonprofit board with her in 2014. She'd told me, between sessions, that she'd done 2 cases against treasurers of medical foundations. She'd told me it was the worst kind of theft because the donors never saw the bottom of the cup. I left her a voicemail at 11:50 p.m. 3 sentences. Ellen, Theodora Holcomb. I think my daughter-in-law has been taking money from my daughter's foundation. I would like to retain you on a quiet basis. I closed the notebook. I put it back in the drawer. When a building cracks, you do not paint over it. You find the load, you measure, you document, then you decide. By the time I closed that notebook, I had a plan that would end in a courtroom. Hannah had a plan that would end in my basement. July and August are quiet months on the lake. The dock fills in the mornings, empties by evening. The pollen falls, the bass moves into the cooler shadows, and in those 2 months, Miguel Reyes built a case in a studio in the Back Bay. I met him twice, both times at a coffee shop outside Albany. He wore a gray polo. He brought a single legal pad. He never wrote on it. He listened. 3 more months, Theodora, he said in August, maybe 4. I want the second LLC. I want the cruise booking. I want everything she signed. Take what you need. You're sure you want to wait? I'm sure. What I did in those same months was perform. I drove to Albany on a Sunday in July with a casserole. Hannah opened the door wearing yoga pants and an apology. The apology was theatrical. I had not asked for one. I ate her chicken. I praised Olivia's penmanship. I asked Liam about his tricycle. I hugged Hannah at the door and said I'd be back soon. In the driveway, Hannah's friend Becca had parked her car. Hannah came out, laughed, hugged me with one arm, and showed Becca her new handbag. A Hermes Birkin. Black, palladium hardware. I am not a fashion person, but I have eyes. I estimated $14,000 on the high side, $12,000 on the low. From a side investment Matthew and I made, Hannah told Becca. I drove home. I did not stop at the Iron Bridge. I did stop at a Stewart's, bought a Diet Coke, and drank half of it in the parking lot. That night I wrote in the yellow notebook, Birkin, black, palladium, about $14,000. October sighting, date confirmed. No Matthew bonus this year. Compare Miguel. Architects are trained in patience. A building takes years. A case takes years. So does a person. In October, Hannah started a group text. She titled it Holcomb Christmas Planning 2026 with 3 Christmas tree emojis. She added Matthew, she added Jonathan, she added me. Her first message was 3 paragraphs long. I read it once, and then I read it again, because the first read I had been laughing. Okay, team, here's the plan. Matthew and I take master suite. Kids in upstairs guest room, Jonathan in the loft, Mom in walkout basement. You said you love that room anyway. Christmas Eve dinner, I'm hosting. Please, no foundation talk this year. Let's keep it light and festive. There was a lot to admire. She had relegated me to a room she didn't know belonged to my daughter. She had scheduled around a foundation she was robbing. She had asked us, in advance, not to discuss the very thing she had been quietly using as a personal credit line for 18 months. She had also, somewhere in there, told the federal jury exactly what she'd been thinking. Matthew wrote back in 9 seconds. Sounds great, babe. Jonathan, my youngest son, did not respond for 6 hours. Then he sent one thing, a thumbs up emoji, lowercase, no comment. I wrote looking forward to it at 4:30 in the afternoon. I underlined nothing. I closed the phone. I poured tea. I watched the geese cross the lake. Jonathan's silence felt strange. Jonathan, who had been a chatty boy and had become a quiet man, did not usually send emojis. He had once told me, during medical school, that emojis were linguistic shrugs. He used the word linguistic. He was 23. I'd been amused. He had now linguistically shrugged at a sentence he should have been angry about. I made a note in the yellow notebook. Jonathan, silent. Why? Late October. A Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. I was in the study reading Mary Oliver, and the phone rang on the side table. Mom. Jonathan. I just wanted to check on something. He was using the voice he used at the hospital. I have known that voice for 15 years. He used it when he was about to tell a parent that the child was not going to come out of surgery the way the family had hoped. Are you all right, sweetheart? I'm fine. Mom. Are you okay financially? Hannah mentioned to me, she said you might be overspending on the foundation. I want to make sure you're not overextending. A long pause. I'm not overextending, Jonathan. Okay. Why does Hannah think I am? I don't know. She just mentioned it. Be safe, Mom. He hung up. 90 seconds, maybe less. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. The Mary Oliver book was open on my knee. There is a poem in there about a wild goose. The line is, "You do not have to be good." Caroline used to ask me to read it. I had read it at her funeral. Jonathan had not visited me in 8 months. 8. I had counted in the way mothers count. And now Jonathan, who had not driven up to Lake George since February, was on the phone at 8:30 on a Tuesday asking if I was overextending. I closed the Mary Oliver. I opened the yellow notebook. I wrote one line. Jonathan, possible compromised. Compare Hannah influence. Compare timing of audit. Then I underlined compromised. I underlined it twice. I did not call him back. I did not text him. I let my youngest son sit in his apartment in Albany, and I let my own chest hurt for half an hour without doing anything about it. Architects do not move on suspicion. We measure. The first week of November, I drove the 4 hours to Boston. Ellen Pierce's office is on Beacon Street. Her desk faces the door. She does not believe in pleasantries before a case, and she did not offer any. Miguel's audit was on the desk, 47 pages. Hannah Vance Holcomb, Ellen said. 18 months, $147,500. I sat down. Wire fraud, she said. 18 United States Code, Section 1343. Federal threshold is $5,000. She cleared that more than 30 times. Sentencing guideline is 21 to 27 months for a first-time, nonviolent offender with no cooperation deal. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District is competent. If we go to them, they'll take it. What's the other option? Civil. We sue. We freeze her LLC. We settle. She pays restitution. It stays quiet. She keeps her pharmacist license. She probably keeps her marriage. I sat for a long minute. She didn't just steal, Ellen. I know. She stole from my daughter's name. I know. Federal. Ellen nodded once. She did not smile. She did not write anything down. You're sure? I'm sure. All right, I'll file the criminal referral. Once it goes in, the U.S. Attorney's Office will take it from us. I want 1 more month of audit. I want the cruise. I want the surgery receipts. I want the LLC's tax returns. Then we send it. I drove back the 4 hours. I stopped at a diner in Lenox. I had a tuna sandwich I could not taste. The waitress called me honey. I tipped her 30%. When I got home, I sat at the counter. I put the yellow notebook on the stone. I wrote one date, January 18th. That, Ellen had said, was when the sealed indictment would likely drop. A week and a half before Thanksgiving, Hannah called me on a Thursday. It was the middle of the afternoon. I was washing 2 coffee cups by hand. Mom, just confirming, you're okay with the basement room? Of course, honey. And Matthew said, you love it down there. It's a beautiful room, Hannah. And Mom, please don't get upset, but Caroline died 33 years ago. You need to start letting go of that bedroom. It's just a room. We've all been worried about you. The grief, you've been carrying it for so long. We want you to be here, present, with us, with your living family. I let her finish. I let her have the whole speech. There were 41 seconds of it. I did not interrupt. I dried the cup in my hand with the same towel I'd been using for 15 years. Hannah. Yes, Mom. You're absolutely right. It's just a room. The pause on the other end of the line was a small piece of architecture all its own. Hannah had expected resistance. She had not gotten any. She did not know what to do with a yes. Okay, great. Thank you, Mom. She hung up first. Hannah always hangs up first. I stood at the sink. The lake was iron gray in the November light. The dock had a thin skin of ice on the planks. I put the towel down. I walked to the study. I took the yellow notebook out of the drawer. I added 1 line below January 18th. December 24th. Bring Caroline's box. I underlined it once. Hannah had told me in her thoughtful way that Caroline was just a room. Caroline was not just a room. Caroline was a load-bearing wall. And Hannah, who had been chipping at that wall for 3 years, had now told me where to stand when the wall came down. That night, I went into the study. The cedar box has been on the bookshelf since 1993. Tongue and groove, with a brass hinge from a hardware store in Lake Placid. I built it myself the spring after Caroline died because I needed to use my hands and could not face a building. I lifted the lid. The smell of cedar still came up, fainter now, but there. Inside were drawings, stick figures Caroline had drawn in hospital, a green and blue ribbon from a Memorial Day parade in 1991, a small braid of her hair tied with a red thread taken the day she went into hospice, 3 notes she wrote me with the wax crayons the nurses kept by the bed, and, under everything, a yellowed envelope. I had not opened it. It had been there for 33 years. She gave it to me the day before she died. She put it in my hand and said, "For after, Mama, when you forget." I had assumed I would never forget. I had not opened the envelope. That was hubris. That was a 33-year hubris. I opened it now. The paper inside was lined. Her handwriting was the careful, deliberate handwriting of an 8-year-old who had been taught letters by a patient grandmother. Dear Mama, if I cannot stay, Please remember the lake will come back every summer. Please remember to put my sand by the window. Please remember other kids will need this room. I told God to send them to you. Please be ready. Love, Caroline. I held the page for a long time. The blue glass jar was on the kitchen counter where it had been since 1992. Other kids would need this room. Caroline had known. Caroline, in October of 1992, had told God to send them to me. I closed the envelope. I set it on top of the jar of sand. I said one thing aloud, the first thing I had said aloud about her in many years. I'm ready, baby. I'm ready now. I went back to the yellow notebook. I underlined December 24th twice. Then I called Sarah Bradford. If a memory of someone you've lost gives you strength, tell me their first name in the comments. I read every one. A Saturday in mid-November, 11 in the morning. I was in the kitchen rolling out pie crust because I cannot read the news in November without making pie. A car door slammed in the drive. I looked up. Jonathan. Tesla. Gray. His own, not the rental he had been driving in the spring. He came in without knocking. He has done that since he was 8. He kissed the side of my forehead. He took a stool at the counter and looked at the pie crust as if he had never seen flour before. Mom. Coffee. I poured him a cup. I did not ask him why he was here. I rolled out the crust. Mom, has Margaret Ellis been around the office lately? I stopped. I started again. She's there 4 days a week, sweetheart. She does the books. Has she been talking to you about the foundation? I set down the rolling pin. Jonathan, why are you asking? He looked at me. His eyes were exactly his father's eyes. He has my mouth, but he has Daniel's eyes. Just be careful what you sign right now, Mom. Don't trust people. Even family. Even family. Especially family. A long silence. All right, sweetheart. He drank a third of his coffee. He looked at the jar of sand on the counter. He did not touch it. He stood up. I have to go, Mom. You haven't been here in 8 months. I know. He kissed my forehead again. He left. He did not finish his coffee. I stood in the kitchen with 2/3 of a cup of coffee on the counter and a half-rolled pie crust and a yellow notebook in the study. I wrote in the notebook that night, Jonathan knows something. Hannah ally or working against her? I did not know which. I was going to find out. December 3rd, Boston, Beacon Street. Miguel had delivered the final report 2 days before. The cruise, the plastic surgery, a rhinoplasty in Manhattan, June 2025, $31,000, paid in 2 wire transfers. The Disney trip, the down payment on an investment condo Hannah had been considering buying with her sister. The Shell LLC in Delaware called Vance Holdings, 84 pages of evidence. Ellen Pierce slid the referral packet across her desk. Initial, date, page through. I did. 47 pages of audit, 84 pages of evidence, a 4-page cover affidavit in my voice that Ellen had written and I had revised, a bank statement summary, a timeline that ended in October. I signed the affidavit slowly, twice. My full legal name, Theodora June Holcomb. Ellen typed for a minute. She hit send. The cursor blinked. It's filed, she said. A USA's office, Northern District, Albany. Now what? Now we wait. They'll assign, usually a week, sometimes 2. They'll send confirmation with the assigned AUSA. If they take it, and they will take it, they'll begin building. I expect a sealed indictment by mid-January. Arrest follows within days. She'll be told to surrender. January 18th. That's a guess, but a good one. I closed the folder. I stood up. Ellen looked at me. Theodora, this will be a hard Christmas. It will not be the hardest one I have spent. I drove back to Lake George the long way, on Route 9. I stopped at the diner in Lenox a second time. The same waitress. She remembered me. She brought me a slice of pecan pie without asking. She did not call me honey this time. She called me ma'am. I left her 40%. When I got home, I wrote in the yellow notebook. Filed, January 18th. I closed the notebook. I went to make the Bradford family's beds. December 23rd. 2 in the afternoon. The light was already failing. A blue station wagon turned into the drive. Sarah Bradford behind the wheel. Mason in the back seat. The oxygen tank on the floorboard. I went out without a coat. Sarah is 34, tall, thin, tired in a way I recognized, the tiredness of a mother who has not slept in 3 years and is not asking anyone to notice. Dark hair pulled back, Carhartt jacket. She opened Mason's door. He stepped out slowly. Small for 9. Pale, with the fine blue line at the corner of the mouth I remembered from my own daughter. Mrs. Holcomb. Sarah. Mason. Mason looked up at me. His eyes were very serious. Is this really our house for 10 days, ma'am? Mason, it's your house. The lake is also yours. Don't fall in. The water is cold. He smiled. Small. Real. I had laid Mason's bed myself. White sheets. The heavy quilt my mother made in 1962. A bowl of clementines on the dresser. The blue jar of sand on the windowsill. I had moved it from the kitchen counter for him. This is my room? Yes. The light is good for drawing stars. Sarah turned away. She put her hand on the doorframe. He hasn't said he liked anything, she said low, in 3 months. I made Mason hot chocolate the way I made it for Caroline. Whole milk, a pinch of salt, 1 marshmallow. He held the mug in both hands. He asked what was in the jar. My daughter's sand, from this lake, a long time ago. He looked at me. He nodded. She should have it back at sunrise. I told him she would like that. That night, the wind off Lake George was steady. Mason slept in the room where my daughter had died. I sat in the kitchen until 2 a.m. and was not afraid. December 22nd. I am going back one day. Hannah had posted a photo. I knew because Olivia's babysitter sent me a screenshot. The babysitter is 22. She had been Olivia's nanny since Olivia was 3. She had also been, quietly, my eyes on Hannah since June. The photo was a throwback. Christmas 1991. Caroline was 7.5. She was on the couch in the lake house wearing a red velvet dress my mother had bought her. Matthew was 9. Jonathan was 4 in fire truck pajamas. I had taken the picture. I'd had to ask the photographer at the local pharmacy to develop it. Hannah had posted it. Hannah, who had never met Caroline, who had never been to a Heart Heroes event, who had been treasurer for 31 months without going through a single donor file. The caption read, "Continuing our family tradition this year at the lake house, passing love through generations. So grateful for this legacy. #blessed, #family first, #Christmas at the lake." She had tagged me. She had also tagged the lake. 1,847 likes by 4 p.m. I made tea. I did not respond to the post. I did not screenshot it. I did not need to. The babysitter had done that already, and the metadata was preserved. I opened the yellow notebook. December 22nd. H. Public claim of Caroline's legacy. Use at confrontation. Photo metadata held. I closed the notebook. I looked out the window. The lake was a sheet of cold metal in the late afternoon. The dock had a foot of snow on it. The boathouse light was on because Margaret had been working late. I thought, for the first time in 3 months, that I might cry. I did not. I went to the linen closet. I pulled out 4 sets of clean sheets. I went upstairs and made the beds in the bedrooms my children and grandchildren would sleep in for one more night. The audacity. She had taken Caroline's Christmas and put it in a hashtag. I would let her keep it. Until 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. December 23rd, 10 p.m. The Bradfords were asleep. The walkout room was dark. I could see through the doorway from the living room the faint outline of the oxygen tank's blue indicator light. I sat at the kitchen counter. I drafted 1 text to Matthew. I rewrote it 3 times. The final version was 19 words. "Matthew, before you drive up tomorrow, please call me. Just 10 minutes. There's something we need to discuss." I sent it at 10:08 p.m. I watched the dots. They came up, they went down. They came up, they went down. They came up a 4th time at 10:55. His reply was 22 words. "Mom, busy with kids and packing. Can it wait till we get there? Love you. We'll catch up tomorrow." A small red heart at the end. He had used a small red heart. He had once written motions for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. He could now type one paragraph to his mother and add a heart emoji. I read it twice. I did not reply. In the yellow notebook, I wrote one line. Matthew, last chance offered. Declined. I underlined the word declined. I gave my son one chance. Architects test the load before they declare a wall failed. I had tested. He had not held. He had let his wife steal from his sister's name, and he had not noticed. He had let his mother sit alone in a kitchen for 6 months building a federal case, and he had not asked. A small red heart. I poured the rest of my tea down the sink. I rinsed the cup. I left it on the drying rack. I went to bed. I slept. This is something people do not understand. The night before the worst confrontation of my life, I slept. December 24th, 3 p.m. Matthew and Hannah loaded a Range Rover in the driveway of their house in Albany, Olivia in the booster seat, Liam in the car seat behind Hannah. 2 duffels, 3 wrapped presents from LL Bean. I did not see this. I am reconstructing it from what the children later told me. Olivia is a serious 6-year-old, and she has a memory I would have envied at any age. According to Olivia, Hannah looked in the rearview mirror and put on lipstick the color of cranberries. Hannah said something to Matthew about it being easier once Mom was downstairs. Matthew said something back about Mom not being the enemy. Hannah said she had not said enemy, she had said old. Olivia repeated the word old to me later in a small voice, the way a child says a word she does not have a use for yet. Matthew did not answer. He looked at the road. Jonathan was driving separately from his apartment in Albany. He drove a 2024 Tesla. He had not told anyone he was bringing anything. According to my later count, his trunk contained a notebook of his own. He had been keeping it since June. At the lake house, I prepared. I set the table for 10, 5 on each side. White linen, Daniel's mother's silver, the blue jar of sand on the windowsill in the walkout room where Mason had asked me to leave it, the yellow notebook in the leather portfolio under the kitchen counter beneath 3 folded dish towels, the 47-page audit, the 84 pages of evidence, the unopened envelope from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of New York that had arrived on December 18th. I made beef tenderloin. I made green beans. I made a Yorkshire pudding from my own mother's recipe. I let Mason help me roll the dough. Sarah lit the candles. I waited. At 5:14, I heard tires. The Range Rover came down the drive. Headlights swept across the kitchen wall. Olivia's voice was already audible, a high, excited string of syllables about the lake. Hannah stepped out first. Black coat, cream scarf, the Cartier bracelet on her wrist, caught for a second in the headlamp glow before she pulled the cuff down. She walked the path. She smiled before she looked up. She always smiles first and looks second. Then she looked up. Sarah Bradford's station wagon was parked 20 feet from her. The hatch was open. A pediatric oxygen tank canvas case sat by the rear bumper. Hannah's smile stopped moving. It did not fall. It froze. Matthew came around the car with Liam in his arms. Olivia jumped out and ran for the porch. Inside, Sarah had heard the car. She came out of the walkout room into the living room, brushing flour from her hands. Mason was a few steps behind her, breathing into the small mask. The blue indicator light on his tank pulsed. I met Hannah at the door. I opened it for her. Mom, who is what? Hannah, Matthew, come in. There are people you need to meet. Sarah stepped forward, polite, calm. Single mothers know how to walk into a room. She held out her hand. I'm Sarah Bradford. This is my son, Mason. Hannah's hand came out automatically. Years of corporate spouse training do not turn off. She shook. I'm Hannah Holcomb, Matthew's wife. Why are you here on Christmas? I answered. They're staying through New Year's. They're foundation guests. Olivia, 6 years old and the only honest person in the room, walked over and said, Hi, is that boy sick? Mason knelt down without speaking. He put out his free hand. I'm Mason. I'm 9. I have a heart problem, like your Aunt Caroline did. Olivia looked at me with very large eyes. Caroline got sick like him? Yes, my love. He's nice. She took his hand. Hannah turned to me. Her voice was a hiss the children could not hear. "Mom, kitchen, now." I followed her into the kitchen. Matthew came after us. Sarah stayed in the living room with Mason and Olivia. She had read the room. Hannah turned. She kept her voice low. The fury in it was tight. "What is this? You rented our house to strangers on Christmas?" I went to the kettle. I lit the burner. The flame caught. "They're not strangers, Hannah. They're foundation guests. They have to leave, now. We drove 4 hours. They have a signed lease through January 1st. "A lease? Mom, you signed a lease on our family lake house without telling us? Are you all right? Did someone... Margaret, was it Margaret who told you to do this?" I poured water into the teapot. I did not raise my voice. "I don't run my house decisions by my children, Hannah. I'm 74. I built this house in 1985. I built the foundation in 1993. This is not your foundation. This is the family's foundation. This is Caroline's foundation." I poured a cup. I held the cup. I looked at her. Yes, it is Caroline's foundation. She heard the way I said it. She did not understand yet. She just heard the temperature of it. "I'm calling Matthew's firm. We'll see what they say about a host kicking family out of their own home." "Call them. That is a good idea, Hannah. Have a partner from your husband's firm advise you on this evening." She blinked. Matthew said, "Hannah, stop. Mom." I set the cup down. I looked at my son. He looked at the counter. "Matthew," I said, "get Jonathan when he comes in. Then I need all 3 of you with me downstairs." "Mom." "It is not a question, Matthew. I am asking it as one, but it is not." Jonathan arrived at 5:36. He took in the room, Mason, Sarah, Olivia, Liam, the standing oxygen tank, without flinching. He kissed my forehead. He looked once at Hannah. He nodded at me. Hannah did not see the nod. Hannah had her phone in her hand and was scrolling for a contact. "Finally," she said to Jonathan, "your mother has lost her mind. There are strangers in the back bedroom. She signed some kind of..." "Mom," Jonathan said, ignoring Hannah completely, "what do you need me to do?" "Stand with me." He looked at me for a long beat. Then he set down his coat. "All right," Hannah said. "Jonathan, what is wrong with you? Why are you..." I picked up the leather portfolio from under the dish towels. I picked up Caroline's cedar box from the shelf. I held the sealed FBI envelope in my left hand. I walked toward the door of the walkout room. Matthew, Hannah, Jonathan. I did not look back. "Olivia, sweetheart, stay with Miss Sarah and Liam in the living room. Mason, you stay too, please. I need to speak with the grown-ups for a minute." Mason looked at his mother. Sarah nodded. "Yes, ma'am," he said. Then, more quietly, "Mrs. Holcomb, are you all right?" I stopped. I looked at this 9-year-old boy on borrowed time, who had been in my house for 30 hours, and who had just asked the only question my own son hadn't. "I am, Mason. Thank you." I walked down the half stairs to the walkout level. 3 sets of footsteps followed. Matthew's the slowest. Hannah's the fastest, in heels she should not have worn for a lake house Christmas. Jonathan's the most measured. I opened the door to Caroline's room. The light through the back windows was the gold of 5:43 on a December afternoon at 43 degrees north. Mason's sketchbook lay open on the bed. I stood in the doorway. Hannah came up beside me. She was still talking, but her voice trailed off when she saw the room. It is a beautiful room. Red oak floors, the panoramic window looking out at the cove, the reading lamp, the single bed pushed to the far wall where the morning sun comes in, the small writing desk where Caroline had kept her crayons, the quilt my mother had made in 1962, washed 45 times, still soft. On the bed, Mason's sketchbook lay open. He had drawn Orion in pencil, 3 stars in the belt, a figure with one arm raised, holding what looked like a shield. I did not turn around. I spoke to the room. She was 8 years old when she died in this room. Caroline, November 14th, 1992, at 6:42 in the morning. Behind me, the air changed. In that bed, I let the silence settle. I redesigned this room in 1991 so she wouldn't have to climb stairs. The light comes in here at sunrise. That's why she's here. That's the only reason she's here. I turned around. Matthew was already sitting on the edge of the bed. His hand was on the quilt. He was not crying yet. He was something past crying. Jonathan stood by the doorframe. His arms were folded. Hannah stood between them. She looked at the bed. She looked at me. She looked at the bed again. Her face had been arranged for one fight, and the fight had become another fight, and her face had not caught up. I let her be in the room. I let the room do its work. I said, quietly, the only sentence I had been holding for 33 years and 7 months and several thousand quiet evenings. This is the room you wanted to put me in, Hannah. Hannah did not speak. She did not, for the first time in her marriage, have anything to say. I set Caroline's cedar box on the writing desk. I opened the leather portfolio. I laid the yellow notebook on the bed beside Mason's sketchbook. I laid the audit out next. 47 pages. Miguel Reyes's letterhead on the cover. Tab 1, Operating Account Reconciliation. Tab 2, Disbursement Trail. Tab 3, External LLC Match. Tab 4, Personal Expenditure Schedule. I opened Tab 4. Hannah. June 2024 through November 2025. 18 months, $147,500 from Heart Heroes Foundation. Transferred to Vance Holdings, LLC. Delaware. Sole owner, you. I turn the page. Cartier bracelet, $8,400, August 2024. Hermes Birkin, $14,200, October 2024. Royal Caribbean Cruise, $18,650, March 2025. Rhinoplasty, $31,000, June 2025. I turned again. Disney Aulani, $22,000. Down payment on a condo in Saratoga Springs, listed as a personal investment, $38,500. I closed the tab. I looked up. You bought a Birkin bag with money meant for a dying child. The room was so still I could hear Mason's oxygen tank humming, faint and steady, through the closed door. Matthew's hand came off the quilt. He stood up. He took 2 steps back. He sat down again on the desk chair, the small wooden chair Caroline had once sat in to write her name. Hannah's mouth moved. Words came out. This is out of context. I was going to put it back. I had a plan. There is no context, Hannah. There is no plan. You don't understand. I'm 74, I'm a retired architect, and I read the documents. I am exactly the wrong audience for a context defense. Hannah's knees folded. She did not gracefully sit. She slid against the edge of the bed and ended up on the floor on the red oak in a way her body would later remember. She cried. The first sob came up out of her reel. The second sob already had architecture in it. I had nothing growing up, Mom. My mother left me. She left me when I was 5 and went to Reno with a man named Greg who didn't want me. You cannot. You don't understand what that does to a child. I did not move. Your childhood was painful, Hannah. I'm sorry. That is not authorization. She looked at me. Her face changed. She tried a new angle. The children, Olivia, Liam. Mom, you'll destroy their lives. You destroyed their mother. That happened before today. She tried a third. You're a vindictive old... Choose your next word carefully, Hannah. She stopped. The federal indictment is sealed. It has already been filed. It is anticipated to drop on January 18th. That is in 25 days. Matthew, from the desk chair, said one thing. Hannah, stop talking. She turned to him. Her face was wet. Her mascara had gone in 2 directions. Matthew, you can fix this. You're a lawyer. You can fix this. Matthew looked at his hands. Hannah, I cannot fix this. This is federal. I do M&A. He looked up at me. Mom, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. I let him not finish it. I opened the sealed envelope from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had not opened it until now, in front of them. Ellen Pierce had asked if I wanted to open it earlier. I had told her no. I had wanted to open it once, in this room, with my family present. The letter was on watermarked paper. 2 paragraphs, signed by Assistant United States Attorney Lisa Hartfield. I read it aloud. I read slowly. I did not skip the formalities. This letter confirms that the criminal referral filed by attorney Ellen Pierce on behalf of Theodora June Holcomb against Hannah Vance Holcomb, date of birth March 14, 1990, has been accepted and assigned to this office. The matter has been opened under 18 U.S.C. Section 1343, wire fraud, and 18 U.S.C. Section 666, embezzlement from an organization receiving federal funds. A sealed indictment is anticipated by January 18, 2027. Estimated sentencing exposure under the federal guidelines is 21 to 27 months custodial, plus restitution. I closed the letter. I set it on the bed. Hannah said, faintly, 27 months. Federal. Yes. Federal prison. Yes. Federal. Matthew said, oh God. I did not look at him. I looked at Hannah. 27 months is the length of time my daughter was sick before she died. I noticed the symmetry. I did not say so to anyone. I am saying so now because I see no reason not to. The room was very quiet. Then Hannah said the only true thing she had said in 18 months. I'm going to lose my license. Yes, Hannah, you are. Hannah looked, in the last way that a drowning person looks, toward Jonathan. Jonathan, you have to talk to her. She's gone crazy. This is all wrong. Jonathan unfolded his arms. He came one step into the room. He spoke evenly. Hannah, 6 months ago, I was at the clinic. One of my longtime patients, the grandmother of a girl I'd been treating for 2 years, showed me a photo from her granddaughter's wedding. You were in the background. You were wearing a Cartier bracelet. Hannah's mouth opened. She mentioned how generous Matthew has been to you. She'd known the family forever. I made the right amount of small talk. I drove home. I sat in my apartment for 2 hours. He turned to me. Then I called Margaret Ellis. The next morning, I told her what I had seen. She told me, quietly, that she had been seeing things she could not square in the books for some time. She said she was going to bring it to you, in her own way, within the week. I asked her to leave my name out of it. She did. She came to you days later. I nodded. Mom, I stayed quiet on purpose. If you'd known I knew, and you'd told Matthew, and he'd told Hannah, she would have moved the money. I let myself look distant for 6 months. I didn't visit. I didn't call you on Mother's Day. I let you think I had drifted because I needed her to think I had drifted. He swallowed. I am so sorry, Mom. It was the only way. I felt the bone in my throat go soft. I crossed the room. I put my hand on his arm. I did not say anything because there was nothing to say that would not be smaller than what he had done. Matthew put his face in his hands. Hannah, on the floor, said, you, both of you. She did not finish. 2 of my 3 children had stopped listening. Matthew stood up from the desk chair. He walked over to the cedar box. He did not open it. He put his hand on the lid. I stopped coming up here 3 years ago, he said. I couldn't breathe in this room. I told myself I was busy. I let my wife become something I didn't see because I wasn't here to see. He turned to Hannah. Hannah, get up off the floor. Take your phone. Upstairs. We are leaving at sunrise. Then he turned to me. Mom, I don't know what to say to you. You can start tomorrow, Matthew. There was movement in the doorway. Sarah, holding Mason's hand. Mason had his sketchbook tucked under his arm. Mrs. Holcomb, we can go if you need us to. Sarah, this is your room for 10 days, please. Mason walked past Hannah without looking. He came to me. This is Orion, Mrs. Holcomb. It looks like a hunter, but it's actually a guardian. I took the sketchbook. He's beautiful, Mason. Jonathan offered Matthew a hand. They went up the stairs together. Hannah stayed on the floor. I let her stay. Hannah went upstairs eventually. Matthew packed 2 duffels and took the children out to the car at 7 a.m. Christmas morning. Hannah followed, 12 steps behind. He nodded at me at the door. I nodded back. That was the goodbye. Sarah and Mason and I had Christmas at noon. Tenderloin, Yorkshire pudding. Jonathan came at 3 with a bottle of red wine and a kid's atlas of constellations for Mason. Mason cried when he opened it. Quiet. After dessert, I brought the blue glass jar down to the walkout room. Mason was on the bed in the late afternoon gold. This was Caroline's, Mason. She gathered this sand in October 1992. I'd like you to have it. You may add to it. The lake comes back every summer. He took the jar in both hands. Tomorrow morning, at sunrise. Sarah cried without making a sound. If you've ever been told to move on from someone you loved, pause this video and write their first name in the comments. Let them be remembered today. January 18th, 2027. Sealed indictment dropped. Unsealed Monday at arraignment. March 23rd, guilty plea. May 12th, sentenced, 28 months. FCI Danbury, 3 years supervised. The New York Department of Health pulled her pharmacist license in July. Permanent revocation. February 8th, Matthew filed. Hannah contested for 2 months and stopped. Joint custody, Matthew primary. He took a smaller apartment in Albany. Olivia and Liam visit me every other weekend. March 7th, Mason got his heart. A 16-year-old donor in Cleveland, I'll never know. 11-hour surgery. Sarah called me at 2 a.m. from the waiting room. It worked, Thora. It worked. The foundation received $340,000 in donations between January and June. People are kinder than they ever let you know. I closed the yellow notebook on the morning of June 21st, 2027. I put it back in the drawer with the architecture sketches. Justice does not feel like fireworks. It feels like a kitchen that finally smells like coffee again. Mason came back to the lake in August, 4 inches taller, color in his face. He brought the blue glass jar to the dock, knelt, added a fistful of new sand. He looked up. Caroline would have liked that. She would. Jonathan drives up every second Saturday. He took a partial position at Glens Falls Pediatric Cardiology. He says the commute is one Mary Oliver poem long. He opened the yellow notebook at the counter one October Saturday. He turned to the first page, the 1985 sketch. Mom, you drew this? I drew everything that mattered. He did not say anything. Matthew comes up 2 weekends a month with Olivia and Liam. He cooks. Badly. He is getting better. The 19-word boundary I gave him in February held. We have rebuilt the house. The walkout room is, this year, where the grandchildren read on rainy mornings. Olivia is 7. She has Caroline's mouth. Liam is 5. They sleep upstairs. They eat at the table where I set 10 plates on the worst night of my life. They ask me sometimes about their cousin who died. I tell them what I know. She was 8. She loved the lake. She gathered sand so I would remember. The water did not go away. My daughter-in-law thought a basement was where you put people who don't matter. She didn't know architects don't believe in basements. We believe in foundations. That's my story. A jar of sand, a yellow notebook, a child whose memory built a foundation. If this reminded you that love is not too much, share with someone who needs this. Comment, subscribe. See you next time.